We are at the fireside chat here at the TriboTEX home in Colfax, Washington. It's currently snowing, blizzard outside. A snowmobile just went down the main street. But I'm here with Pasha Rudenko, and we're going to talk about a new product being released called TriboTEX Transmission. So, first of all, Pasha, it's nice to be here with you.
Thank you.
So, to start things off, what is so exciting about this new product?
Historically, we came to the gearboxes and transmission treatment earlier than even engine treatment. It is much easier to make treatment for the gearbox, because in gearbox you have 50 to 100 steel pretty much everywhere, sliding to rolling ratio everywhere, so it's better tribologically system than engine. But if an engine, the results are absolutely astonishing. Engine gets cooler, runs smoother, more performance. In transmissions, results are more mild. So you have to be more in tune with the car to feel good difference and appreciate it. In transmission, essentially, there's only one parameter that make a difference, and that parameter is temperature. So if you look at your dashboard, transmission have only one warning light. What is it?
Yeah, temperature.
Right? So in temperature, where the temperature come from? Fluid is churning in the torque converter, and the friction gets produced. So if you tow it, if you under hot conditions or in high altitude where there is more load, you get your friction generating more heat, and it actually boil your ATF and produce and degrade friction elements. So if you reduce friction, that dramatically improve longevity of your fluid, longevity of your transmission, gives you more towing capacity, more power, and all of it is beneficial.
So how many times will I need to add this to my transmission fluid to get those kind of results?
That's a very good question. So if you're in a new car or the car had never had a fluid change, it's pretty much once and done.
Oh wow!
Right. In many cases, it's even ATF fluid considered to be lifetime. Even in reality, it's for the warranty period of the car. Typically, so if your car outside of the warranty period, you actually would benefit from changing fluid before adding TriboTEX.
I see. So it's good if you have an older car to get your transmission flushed before. Is there a way to check your transmission to know fluid to know that it's able to take transmission?
Yes, absolutely. Very good question. Generally, you have to look at the condition of the fluid. It's a very debatable question in industry. Some people think if the oil ATF fluid is older, don't change it. If it is fresh, change it partially or do a complete flush. There is no single opinion.
Yeah.
There is always different there is always right for the right particular case, right? If your fluid is old but transmission still works fine, partial fluid change would do better for you, or several flushes.
I see.
But if it is keeping same fluid, also another option. Depends what you want to do with the car. If your goal is to buy a car and drive it so it doesn't break and sell it in the short time, probably your better bet would be not touching it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, my friend actually just went to a shop and she said that the mechanic told her she needs a transmission fluid change.
Fire is really hot.
Yeah. Then she said that it was going to be $326 for the flush. But when we used her dipstick and checked the fluid color, it appeared to be looked fairly fresh. would a mechanic know if it needs to be a flush? And are they just trying to get a little extra money out of this? And if you were to put this into that, would that prevent you from needing a flush if they're saying that the oil is degrading?
This is a very, very good question, and I bet you you've been in the industry for a while. You understand it well. So when mechanics have several competing interests when they talk to you. One interest, of course, they want to make sure that they sell you a service that they can provide, right? So that's one stuff. Second thing, it's always a fear on the behalf of the mechanic or a doctor. Are they suggesting something to you that going to hurt you in the long term? So they always will prefer to go for lowest risk recommendations, right? So if your choice is to change fluid or not to change fluid, even if you might be okay with the old fluid for a while, they're not going to recommend you that.
Yeah, I see.
Right? They're more likely to recommend you, okay, change it to be on the safe side. Generally, I would say you have to look at the every case different, right? If you're able to accept responsibility for your own vehicle and make your own decisions, then you better know what is a good fluid, what is not good fluid, and keep as it goes, right? And that's one of the things that we probably should talk about more.
Yeah. I've seen online you can find like color charts, like how a mechanic is able to identify if the fluid is gone bad or not. A lot of times they have like almost a color indicator that they'll start out nice bright pink and then they end up almost like a brown, or if it's milky, that's like a bad scenario. If one little syringe of TriboTEX is in that transmission fluid, will it kind of give a false negative for bad oil, or is it going to be non-detectable?
This is a very good question. From the very beginning, we want to separate ourselves from everybody else. And it's quite known in the industry, the larger bottle of oil or additive you sell, the more likely the higher sales you're going to have. And we just decided that no, our technology is so effective and so potent that given people to perceive the difference from the small amount of the material would make them astonished by the performance of our product. And that was the goal initially. So we can make even smaller syringes and package it even denser, but then it's going to be dense like a paste and more difficult to handle. But this is the optimal quantity. So our goal was to use minimum effective quantity and package it in the way that customers can feel that dramatic difference from the small amount of the product.
Yeah. Will this change like the color of the liquid?
No.
Okay. What kind of testing have you done on it? Do you have any like examples of like vehicles that or transmissions that have done this and done some long-term testing with?
Yes, essentially, we started all development of our product started from developing gear treatments for wind turbines. If you know that the wind turbine gearboxes or transmissions work under severe conditions. It's wind gusts, it's gearboxes breathing in and out air and moisture. This is stops, starts at different time. So if you put same conditions of the gearbox of the wind turbine to the condition of a transmission, then equivalent transmission life should be over 1 million miles.
Oh, wow.
So in this condition, steel gearboxes of wind turbines, they routinely fail at about 7 years, right? Which is definitely not enough for how long they should last. So when I was at Oregon, there was a whole gearbox collaborative to understand what are the mechanisms of failure in the wind turbines, what are the driving mechanisms there, who is the enemy. And one of the things that connected with my prior background of being experts in nuclear reactors is that there is a unique role of hydrogen that diffuses in the steel substrate and create long-term problems with embrittlement, with the with recombination of hydrogen inclusions, and pop out parts of the steel, causing so-called micropitting. And that is the predominant mode of wear in the rolling contact fatigue and general multiply questions regime.
Okay, we got a question.
So let me get to it. When we looked at that problem and realized that we can intervene role of hydrogen on the surface with catalysts, with our nanoparticles, with the and turn it into positive element. DLC in the carbon is not necessarily lubricious unless there is a hydrogen in it. That was the great invention of my mentor at Argonne, Dr. Ali Erdemir. And when we realized that we can use that hydrogen on the surface by bringing catalysts on board, that was that understanding brought us into the right path on optimizing the material, and we got such an astonishing results long term. And yeah, once you thinking about if it works somewhere and you have this stuff, you start putting it in every car you have, every car you own. It's not a secret that when I was a graduate student, I used to buy cars and sell cars for the purpose of testing,
just adding some sauce,
just adding some sauce, right, and
fixing them up. And
if you search car that needs some mechanic special or burning oil or low compression, if you just search those keywords, you can find a lot of opportunities that can be improved at a very low cost.
That's really exciting. Basically, either people can now start bringing these old cars that would end up in junkyards and bringing them back out onto the road because they just needed a little bit of fixes. But we got a question from online. It says, how much of the color in the bad oil is from cast iron and how much is from exhaust deposits?
That's a good question. So
I think this is for more on the engine oil.
I bet this is for
and not the transmission.
Color of oil generally comes from a few components. One is the oxidation of the base. When the base gets oxidized, you get this darker color. This is where synthetic oil, and specifically ester-based synthetics and PEO-based synthetic group 4, group 5 synthetics, outperform mineral oil in the oxidation part. But the second part of it is the dirt or inclusions. This is where I radically disagree with some people who sell expensive oil and tells you that oil should go for 20,000 miles or 30,000 miles. I think if you buy an expensive oil and synthetic oil, you're buying it for performance, not to save money. If you want your car to last longer, you don't want your oil last longer. You want your car last longer.
Yeah.
You're saving $10 a quart on buying cheaper oil versus one, but you putting at risk your 5,000, 10,000, even more expensive engine at risk. That doesn't make sense. get a good oil and keep it for performance if it is turbocharged car or summer, or just change your oil more often. And this way you remove contaminants, which is very, very, very important to remove contaminants. So when you add TriboTEX, many of our customers notice that if you add it mid-cycle, you get oil turning into a lighter one.
Oh wow, like cleans the oil.
It cleans the oil. It doesn't clean oil. So if you have a little bit of oxidation and a little bit of carbon produced in oil, specifically this is very relevant for diesel engines. They produce a lot of carbon. You see the oil get lighter, or it stays lighter if you get used to it during longer time.
So the diesel likely getting more soot into the oil, but your product uses the soot?
Yes, we do use soot. The nanoparticle itself have two different sides. One side attaches to a surface, and other side make more lubricious film and more active film. And that active film attracts carbon from the oil, or from the oil molecules, or from the carbon contaminants like little particles of soot, and retain on the surface. So we have substrate from the ceramic porous particles that are aligned on the surface, and top of it capped with the carbon that got from the oil as a soot, or
basically graphene?
as oxidants. Yeah, basically graphene, graphite, amorphous carbon. There's a lot of carbon species there, even diamonds.
That's impressive, and that's where you get that diamond hardness?
Yes, the diamond-like hardness. The purity of diamond is defined by the purity of the crystallic grating.
Yeah.
So when the diamond is not as pure, it's usually considered to be like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I got some questions that were asked.
By the way, maybe we can ask our listeners, what are your view on transmission oil changes? We have three options: complete transmission flush. Let's make it 1. Complete transmission flush. Let's make it 1. If you put in the chat window, 1. Second, partial transmission flush. Let's make it 2. Partial. And 3 is do not change all transmission ATF fluid at all. Let's make it 3. 1 is the full flush for transmission, 2 partial flush, and 3 don't flush transmission. We want to know what you guys think about that.
That's not a bad idea. So on our Instagram, we've had some questions come up. Why is it so expensive? I think this is kind of funny. It seems pricey compared to the other oil additives, but personally, I've saved over $130 this year in reduced oil changes that I've noticed. So for me, it's maybe not expensive, but higher priced. So do you have an explanation for that cost?
This is a very good question, because price always is relevant. It is always question what it is expensive related to what. If we talk about current oil additives, then what we typically have is the different fraction of the oil distillate, which costs pretty much the same as oil or fuel per gallon, packaged to you in the smaller bottles and sold at 3, 4, 5, 10,000 10 times markup.
That's a lot of the stuff they remove from fuel.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like a waste product for these distilleries.
Yes. If you look at the components, if you see their naphtha, right? Naphtha is the literally
toxic
toxic byproduct of the fuel and oil production. Those are the fractions that are not used. They're actually cheaper than fuel, and oil industry gladly would pay you
to dispose of it. And now it's on the people instead of on the refinery.
Yes.
So that probably not the best for the environment.
That's correct. And many people, and sometime in the past, people figured out there is some application for that product. They can little bit improve, little clean the engine a little bit, that kind of stuff. So
Will this change?
when industry find out that that demand can be addressed by this waste product, there is opportunity and people capitalize on that opportunity. When we looked at the technology, we believe that our market is never, ever, ever is going to be consumer vehicles. When we started just making powder, our cost of manufacture was close to $500 per for like 1 gallon equivalent for a product what you need for an oil, and there is no way on the face of this planet
I would
we're
not.
able to sell anyone $500 treatment for an engine that make it quieter, a little bit more efficient,
Yeah.
maybe a few times more reliable. That was difficult. So we thought the only application would be wind turbines, industrial applications, military, that kind of stuff. Only because we offered that project for fund International Science Foundation and they funded us, we was able to make manufacturing into more efficient way and reduce the price of manufacturing to the point that we can actually break even at the reasonable price.
That's awesome. Research and development, you know, it always seems expensive up front, but often can get you some savings down the road and get people the savings. So it's awesome. Do you see the product, if you scale up to even larger, do you think that these prices may come down in the future and combat the inflation of price?
That is a very good question. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. This is exactly the goal with this new product we release and start on Kickstarter. So we looked back after we pretty much got comfortable on the consumer market. We realized that we should approach it with bringing the cost down over time and introducing new products. And new products means transmission treatment, hydraulic fluid treatment, gear oil, the bearing grease,
Cleaners?
cleaners,
Ooh.
The maybe even pen oiler for small applications. All those products would be useful, but there's always the gap between imagining product and making it, testing it, qualifying it. When by qualifying I mean checking that it meets the performance by yourself, and certifying it, which means that third party checks that your claims of the performance are compliant with the industry standards or the demand.
Everybody loves their baby, but having somebody else say that's a pretty good baby.
That's right.
Yeah. So do you see this getting into the military? Is this like a product that could be used by the military?
Yes. We was blessed with this new Air Force program that is started by AFWorks. When they look at the technology that exists in the startups and make a bridge for those technology to get introduced into Department of Defense. And
This is the Air Force, you're saying?
this is Air Force. This
Wow.
is Air Force, and we are delighted to work with Air Force on this project. So the goal is of the project, essentially after application, you tell what technology you have, you tell what potential application you have, and they offer you a small contract to secure interests and customer within Air Force. So then you take off the lab jacket, wear the suit, get the new friends that have access to military bases, and start talking to people
That's exciting.
who are in charge. Yeah.
So you guys are talking to Air Force people now, is this?
Yes, we had this process for over a year of finding relevant stakeholders, and in government, not a single person, not even President Trump, make a decision by themselves. In government, it's always a collective decisions that made in the interest of whole country. So
There's some big scientists up on that
absolutely.
panel. So
Absolutely.
you've been probably, this product's been scrutinized by some of the best in the world in some of these labs and stuff, and saying that this is okay, this is going to be safe for aviation.
Yes. So and the process is even longer than what we have right now. This initial scrutiny, I think we are in the part of that process, but getting to the flight readiness, it's quite longer process.
I've heard the FAA is not the easiest to allow new products, and a lot of these people, even if they know it's wrong, don't change because it's not FAA approved. Do you have hopes and aspirations and goals to get that FAA certification?
Yes. Our approach to get into military first with the applications that are that we are already comfortable with. For example, ground support equipment for planes, those are the same generators, right? But even for that application, you need to have engineering study, you need to have a protocol, you need to have standard operating procedures, which need to be done in collaboration with people at Air Force.
I see. And so this is like where the AFWorks comes in and says, all right, we can get you on the base, we can do these tests, we can validate your product on some low risk and basically almost no risk to the military. They're not having to put scientists out to develop this product. They just work with you. And I guess when the government says that they're creating jobs and stuff like that, that's they believe in your product and they're hoping you will grow this into a company.
That is correct. So this is what you see. Last year we had highest increase in whole history of the military budget, and let me be very ecstatic and optimistic about that increase. This is not a militaristic increase, because the increase didn't go in increase of the deployed troops.
But more into the research and technology?
That's correct, Brian. There is most dramatic increase in science and technology budget that is focused on the military applications.
So do you think if the military uses TriboTEX that it will actually save taxpayers money?
Definitely.
Wow.
Look at this in this context. When in 60s and 40s, when government developed Manhattan Project, the government research funding was by far the biggest chunk of research money in the world. Right now, it's not anymore. Right now, Amazon, Facebook, Google, biotech startups, large pharmaceutical companies collectively outspend the government in R&D.
Wow.
So we have way more technologies coming in the private sector, and
cell phones and tech,
yeah. Right, and artificial intelligence. But also there is also research in universities. Governments spend money in universities, but that research in universities usually not transitioned well into in the commercial realm. In part, what we're doing is part of the mission of bringing those dormant technologies that somebody developed, somebody worked 5, 7, 8 years in the university, and bring them to people. And
that's really exciting.
That's really exciting. That's what the Air Force looked. They said, we're going to look at those technology, even we're going to offer them opportunity to fix the current problem that are in the Air Force.
And then students would be able to go out and continue the research that they were doing in the universities, but now paid by the government and creating products for civilians.
And if you look, who are the people who are in the military? People who ride tanks or fly planes are younger than the planes and tanks itself.
Yeah.
The KC-135 platform is about approaching 60 years old.
Those are those big refueling planes.
B-52 platform is also like close to the 50 years old, right? So Abrams tank already close into 20 years.
So
just
it's
the platform
almost
itself,
more
right?
critical that we just keep this equipment running.
It's absolutely critical. If you think how little we spend on support, how little we spend on development of new technology compared on the support of the stuff that we already have, and how little of the new technologies went into support of the old stuff, right? We tried to address it in our Kickstarter campaign. The typical lubricants that these tanks and plane use, they was not improved in more than 20 years. So right now, if you have a cell phone that is just celebrated decade of since inception smartphone, right? Think that the current lubricants was twice as much and not a single change in them, right? What was the last big breakthrough in the in lubricants? Synthetic oils, but they still was there when the Nazi was making potato lean.
I have no idea what that is, but that's way before my time. That's crazy and exciting. So how are people going to be able to like back this, or are they able to buy this product now?
So engine treatment is on our shop on Amazon. You can get it there. We bring in transmission product on Kickstarter, and you will have a great option to get it there on highly affordable price, because we going to offset some of the R&D costs for that product with the Air Force money, with the goal to make our air platforms remain airworthy and low maintenance.
That's exciting. I'm curious if there is a Kickstarter out there that has been matched by the Air Force.
You know, as far as I know, I had not seen anybody even thinking about that. We actually had to ask Air Force, is that an eligible use of fund, to use Kickstarter money for matching funds? And they said yes, and we are happy to bring it for you backers to really strengthen our not just technological perception, but also military standing.
That's exciting. So I got another question here, and it says, does it expire?
That's a very good question. Short answer, no.
Oh, wow.
But long answer, probably if you store it for too long time, right, in containing oil, might get some discoloration or the separation. That's not a problem. Powder itself remains suspended, and without friction acting on it, it does not coagulate or anything in gel.
Does this powder, will it get stuck in like my oil filters? I know I got a fine micron filter. Will this clog up my filter pores?
No. The nanopowder itself is smaller than particles. If there will be some occasional agglomerate, some of it might be in the filter, but that is most of it will go.
So smaller than the tiniest filter holes.
Typical cutoff size in the filter is about 20 micron. Fine filters goes from 3 to 5 micron. Extremely high filter that is do partial bypass 1 micron. Those might be more susceptible, but there is one type of filters that would have effect. It's a centrifugal filter.
Oh, yeah, because the particles would just be spun to the sides because they're heavier than the oil.
So if there's a centrifugal filter, you have to disconnect it for a few hours when you apply the product, when most of it get delivered to the interfaces.
I see. How long does this stuff take to apply?
As far as I know, there's not many centrifugal filters.
I've never even heard of one before, but I kind of understand how they work. What I was saying for this is, how long would this take to apply? Because you're saying like it self-applies. Is this instant? Do I need to drive for a while? Like, what's the application process like?
Yeah. This is a very good question, and I'll bring it an explanation of a benefit. There are a lot of products that brought benefits of nanotechnology to lubricants, including moly, right? If you bring molybdenum disulfide and bring fine particles of moly, then your particles do not attach well to a surface. You have to keep high amount of that nanomaterial suspended in the oil, keep in suspension, not settled, not filtered. That's what gives fear to people. In our case, we bring minusculous amount and of the nanopowder, but that nanopowder, once it traveled through the oil system, once it's get entrapped in the oil interface and attached to a surface, it will stay and remain on the surface. So powder becomes not part of your oil, it becomes part of your surfaces on the engine.
And then it doesn't drain out when you're done?
It doesn't drain out after that, and you need a very small amount, but the drawback of it, it takes long time until particle travels through the system and gets captured where its destiny was to end up, right? Is it the gear or the maybe bearing or maybe a valve tappet or piston cylinder groove?
So what is the applying mechanism? Like, what does the engine or the gears do that make this work?
Yes, the very good question. Essentially, you need a normal force and friction, right? So if it is
for the layman, I'm an engineer, I understand, but I know there's some people out here that don't know what normal force is.
Yes. That's a very good question. If you hear your engine doing tapping or noise, right? Where's the noise? It's some loose part vibrate with the micro vibration in the piece. Can be bearing, can be lifter, can be valve mechanism.
Smacking together.
Smacking against each other, right? And the oil dampened that effect. But if you have particle, and then when this smacking happened, the particles attach to the surface and stay in the place, stay put there. But here's the interesting thing. People say, all right, what if you put too much? Will it jam?
Yeah, I bet you guys, have you flooded one of these engines with this stuff?
Interestingly, yes. You can put more than 10 or up to 20 times. And at once 20 times as much would be essentially very cost prohibitive to make it. Would not be beneficial anymore because your pressure per particle would be too low.
So these use really small particles, so it's like stepping on a needle.
Yes.
It doesn't need that much force to get apply. But if you have 100 needles, you can stand on it.
Yes, yeah. If you know that you can make yogi to sleep on the many nails, but you can't make them to sleep on one nail.
I see that. So we got another question here, and that one was, should I change my oil first? That's not on the transmission side. That one is on the oil side.
On the oil side. Yes, you can change your oil if you're due, but if you recently changed the oil, do not change it.
Okay.
So as long as the oil is clean and not contaminated, you will be fine. But if you want to prolong it, change oil and retain that time as long as as much particles are there, travel around and can keep your system self-organizing.
Yeah, I noticed when I applied it in my vehicle, it took about 300 miles for it to have like really dramatic noise reduction, and I started noticing fuel economy improve about 1,000 miles after that. Are those typical distances and
Yes, that's a very good question. Uh, there's a very good joke about that. Then if you ask engineer any question, you're gonna get one answer. It depends,
always.
right? So what we see typically is about 10 motor hours, but depends on which part of the engine gives you most perceivable issues. The different time it will respond. So the fastest responding part of the engine, it's a valve train. In the valve train, lifters force lubricated from the pump, very quick circulation of the oil, and they slide there. And the moment you improve the lubrication there, the tappets get better pumped up, and it quiets quickly. The bearings in the camshaft, they don't even have inserts. So as they worn essentially once in a lifetime, you can't even replace them, right? So any amount of the material applied there improve their performance dramatically and fast, and interestingly enough, forever. In this part, there's no way you can wear it out afterward.
That's wild.
But what takes most of the energy away, it's not valve tap, it's not valve train. Takes most of the energy away is a piston cylinder group.
Okay.
And in piston cylinder group, there is very small oil comes there. First of all, it's a splash lubrication, or maybe there's this jet spray that sprays the inside of the piston for cooling, and all of it comes to the side. Then there is a oil control ring, which is usually two rings or one ring that has two engines that just exist to remove excess oil. And whatever amount of oil left after it was scraped by the oil control ring goes into compression rings and gets applied to a cylinder. That process is much slower, and even when the piston moves up and down 1,000 times a minute or 5,000 times a minute, then you still have a long way to go to build fully dense coating on the pistons. That's what takes most of the time. And also, in this part, most of the wear happens. So when you start applying the coating there, it takes longer time to form, but it also wears out faster in this area. So this is what limits your longevity, and after about 1,000 hours, which is we consider about 40,000 miles, you better to top it up or add it.
All right.
And again, this is the cases that we looked at. Depends, right? I think this is one question that we should add here. What are the conditions that are worst for a TriboTEX to perform, right? What makes it not work as good? And I would say one condition is acids.
Okay.
Acidic oil, don't change oil too long, and when oil becomes contaminated with water, which is winter, then acids react with the oxides in the ceramic, right? You can dissolve cup without glaze and acid, right?
Clean your toilet bowls with acids.
Toilet bowl with acid, right? This is exactly the same thing. That ceramic respond to acid. So acids are the most harmful for TriboTEX, but also the most harmful for an engine. It doesn't mean that they're like less harmful for engine. Acids dissolve oxides, and they also dissolve metals, right?
Yeah. Aren't most like engine lubricants? I mean, I hear boric acid and others. I mean, I know these things are great, but is that like causing damage over long-term like use?
This is generally acids are not suitable for engines. So to apply them well in to apply acidic components, you have to be very careful and look at the long-term effects and look at the oils. One example, ester-based, ester-based oil or group 5 oils, or pure ester-based oils are had a long, have a long history of being used in high performance applications. But they also have well-known drawback.
Like a stimulant, you use it, you're jacked up, and now you need to keep using it to.
No. Besides that, there is one thing that they're susceptible to moisture. So once there is a moisture, some esters tend to return back to the original state, which is alcohol plus acid, right? So when that happens, and that usually happens when the car or vehicle sits for too long, or the weather condition changed, that kind of stuff. So there is one company that use exclusively ester-based, but for their application it is 100% justified. It is red line. Right? They use ester-based, they use it for race applications, and for race applications you just run your vehicle for a few hours and
Drain that oil after you're
drain
done.
that oil, right? Or maybe even rebuild the engine. For this application, pure esters are very, very, very good application. But in applications where car might be sitting for a long time, or there's weather condition, or there's rains, a lot of the temperature changes, the esters itself losing their luster quite fast.
Oh, I see. I got a question here for the transmission. What exactly does it do? Will it help hesitant shifts and slipping? That's a few questions, I guess, in one. But
Yes.
again, what you said it does, if I can recap what you've said,
Yes.
it builds up on the surfaces. It provides a hydrogen barrier, prevents pitting and corrosion. It helps with impact. It applies through friction and impact. You say noise reduction is a big thing. Hesitant shifts. Is there? I would assume that's like lower performing pressures, or
Yes. Let me bring on board the simple model of how transmission works. How automatic transmission works. Automatic transmission has a pump that generates pressure, and there are several pistons that balanced by springs that respond to opening or closing in the valve body certain valves depending on a different pressure. So that mechanism depend mostly on linearity of that pump and absence of sticking in those pistons and valves, right? So if pump wears out, it doesn't produce same pressure as the system is designed to. So now you have problem that transmission trying to shift at the different speeds. When you try to shift at a different speed, you have more jerky shifts, or when the pistons get stuck and not open the valve, you have those issues too. So this is exactly,
you step on the gas and it doesn't downshift as quick and stuff. But you're saying this may improve that, or it should?
in this case, it definitely should improve performance of the pump. So your pressures should be spot on where they should be, where they're designed to be, and your pistons should open and respond in the same way as they're designed to. But there is also other place where the failure can happen. If your clutches are worn out because you've done it for too long time and all your friction elements were in the clutch, now in the oil, it does not bring it back. So it's not that level of magic yet.
All right. On this thing, it has Miss Madison 3,000 horsepower gearbox treated with TriboTEX. Can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Oh, that was a wonderful story. This story started many years ago. We actually had one judge in one of the first business plan competitions when we participated as students, and the judge challenged us at the validity of our claims. He said, literally, like most of the people say,
BS.
snake oil bullshit, right? You guys out of your mind thinking that you can revolutionize the industry out of the inland Washington. And it helped that he himself was a scientist. So, taken aside business plan like salesmanship, right? We came back to him and we brought our lab results, and
Data speaks.
Data speaks, right? People lie, but numbers don't. So we started communicating with the guy, and it actually turned into many years fruitful collaboration. He connected us with the superstar scientists in Pacific Northwest National Lab.
A national laboratory.
Yes, that's right here. It's actually a remarkable place. This is the place when the U.S. was producing plutonium for the first nuclear bombs. There's a world-class scientist there. We had chance to work at 2 out of 5 by far best microscopes in the world and study this technology. And that was all because of that communication.
Oh, we got another question.
So,
What?
and when he and he have spare passion. He's part of the crew team on this Miss Madison. So,
And Miss Madison, what is that?
Miss Madison. Miss Madison. This is a hydroplane which consists of the Chinook jet coupled to the prop with the small gearbox.
So this is a very fast boat.
The very fast boat, 200 miles
An hour, geez.
an hour. It's pushing it there, yeah. And jet itself is a high-speed shaft, right? The prop should be at lower speed, so they have a reduction gearbox, and that gearbox, just due to the space constraint, is definitely underdeveloped for the application. So they got to the point that they was burning 1-2 gearboxes a season, and they traveled with the 6 gearboxes in their truck. And he said, if you can address this problem, that would be big advantage for us. And we treated 1 gearbox, and that gearbox went to the end of the season, next season, and now we have 3rd season on it. And 2 of those seasons, they become national champions and set the lake record in Detroit. And even if we would like to claim that it's all due to our treatment, it's also because of all teamwork.
Yeah.
And the pilots are there. But
And I
most
bet they're
important thing,
not a salesman. I bet they don't want to say what's working, right?
this is the problem with the racing industry. We had several good contacts with the racing industry, and what the challenge of the racing industry is: if you race against me, and you found the
These are like
edge.
illegal steroids, right? These are
Yes. If you found an edge that helps you to be faster than me, and it is simple to apply, and it is hidden somewhere else, and you don't have to tell about it, you would protect that secret to the extreme.
I see.
And you have to realize that the racing industry have 2 parts. One is the technical and high performance aspect, when engineering compete on the ability to produce the best performing machines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the secrets are.
Mm-hmm.
That's one part.
I just watched Ford versus Ferrari. Amazing film.
Yes.
But that's back in the old days. Manufacturers would do 24-hour long races to prove their technology, prove that their brand was better. I mean, they still do those 24-hour races, but the vehicles are so far from what we get to drive on the streets. It's almost an unfair, it's like saying NASCAR, those vehicles are, the Dodge Intrepid when it was driving around, the Dodge Intrepids do not do 200 miles per hour.
There's also second aspect of the racing industry. Second aspect of the racing industry, it's, I would call it attention merchandising. This is the stickers, this is promotion placement, this is all stuff. So we see Miss Madison using Chinook jet, right? The gearbox that's done by the one of the good manufacturers there that they are really proud of. Our technology or something. But does it mean that any of our stickers on their hull? No. what they have on the hull is Home Street Bank.
The people
Right.
that really pay the money to keep that boat
Yes.
going.
So people say, why don't see your stickers on this stuff? If your stuff really worked there in the racing industry, most likely they will keep you as a cherished secret, but not put your stickers
Yeah. I see. That's almost like a negative. So we got a question here from Michael. Will there be a treatment for manual transmission, or do synchros make this impossible?
Very, very good question, Michael. Synchros work in so synchros have this low angle cones that made from the brass typically, and when the gear engage or disengage during short time, they start to spin together with the gear and align the gear and speed up the other gear to switch. So what happens over time, that little surface suffers somewhere, and for that surface the amount of friction is enough when they attach to build a little bit of film, but not enough to really rub it in to form DLC there.
I see.
So we do help synchros in the manual transmissions, Michael, quite a bit. Challenge to bring same product for manual transmission and automatic transmission is a different kind. And this is more related to the volume of the fluid. In automatic transmission, you can pretty much estimate that you're gonna have from 10 to 16 quart in most of the transmissions of ATF, and that's gonna be it. And for us, for the engine, we sized our product that is gonna go work in most of the cars. So we sized this product that's gonna work in the most of the ATF transmissions. On the manual transmission side, transmissions, rear differentials have wide variety of the volume. So we have to set that volume and amount of the product for the manual transmission a little bit different. So we bring this product for ATF. If you want manual transmission,
can you use half? Or is
talk to our support. If you're able to do good video, good testing, we will get you on our VIP list, and we will send you some products to try before we release one for the manual transmission.
I got a personal question. I drive a manual Jeep, and it's starting to pop out of first gear when I'm at stoplights. Is this something that potentially could TriboTEX?
Maybe we will have another video on
Right.
video of applying to it.
Are we gonna
have better weather than this?
Yeah, no, I'm not crawling under there. Because I got to apply this in my friend's vehicle through her dipstick. That's seemed to be a decent way to get into the transmission. On the manuals, they don't have a dipstick. It doesn't seem. It's the liquid's all contained in there, so I have to put it up on a lift or something to get to it. So is this something that I would like? If I had the manual version transmission, would I have a TriboTEX transmission? Would I give this to my mechanic and say, please add this to the lubricant when you do the change, or fix the synchros, or?
Yes, that's again. This is one of the reasons when we went with the engine product first, because for most people, it's much easier to understand and find where their oil change cap, where the engine oil cap is. But it is more challenging to be correct and precise of where their transmission, access to transmission. I used to drive Subaru, and Subaru, beside of the oil cap, have front differential with access of the gear oil, different oil, and automatic transmission with a different case, with a different lubricant there, and they are on a different side of the transmission. So if you don't know it well,
so this is like potentially a little bit scarier for the person to apply.
yes, So the mechanic is always best option. If you don't comfortable yourself, mechanic will help you, or call our support and we will answer your questions.
Do you think there's going to be a lot of mechanics saying, "Oh, don't put that in your transmission"? Because they haven't seen something like this before? Is this?
Yes, the change takes long time, and we see it both ways. We see some of the mechanics tend to stick to old things. They
Since 1942.
yeah, they still say, "Oh, it's so bad that we don't have leaded fuel anymore," right? Even it saved
There's,
health to
so
all
you're
of
saying
us.
that there's better lubricants than lead? I mean,
Yes, there's a lot of things. Look, there's people who say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna put you more ZDDP because ZDDP was good for anything
until it meets the catalytic converter.
until it meets the catalytic converter," right? I believe that you have to keep up with the current standards of knowledge. Look, we all know that the rotary phones was working pretty well.
Yeah, but I like my cordless phone here, you know?
Yes.
And not one that has a receiver that has a voice messaging machine. So.
Yes, yes. But if somebody would tell to you that the rotary phone is absolutely perfect and worked so well and was so reliable and I can fix it myself,
I
and
have-
I have to pay somebody to fix myself.
I did use one in a power outage. So that was something that was pretty exciting. A rotary phone can work without
Yeah, I think same situation with the mechanic. I think we have enthusiastic adoption among people who are especially in the military. You have to take into account that military mechanics are the only mechanics in pretty much anywhere that don't get paid more if your stuff breaks more often.
Yeah.
It's actually quite opposite. Their performance is graded on the readiness, on how reliable is your stuff and how it's ready to go.
Less in the shop and more out in the field or
Yes.
being used for testing or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes. So after being looking for a good outlet, for good connection and alignment of the goals, we found that the military mechanics are by far most friendly to new technologies, especially technologies that make your stuff break less.
Yeah. You know, like you were talking about wind turbines earlier, I bet the people that replace the transmissions would not want this product because that might hurt their business.
One of the early conversation was with the guy who's in charge of about 5,000 wind turbines in the fleet, and one of the things that he said, frankly, that the 6% failure rate is perfect for them because they can finance their second crane. If the failure rate will go down from that, they probably would have to put regular sand, not your nano powder in the gearboxes to keep it.
They want them to break. Yeah. That's
That's the difference. If you own it and somebody else repair it for you, you definitely have not aligned goals. You want it to last, and guy who repair it wanted to break regularly, so you come back to them.
So, you know, maybe your mechanic might not be recommending this product, but you are the owner of your product and you don't want it to break down. You don't want to keep funding those mechanics for these transmission repairs.
I believe that mechanics will come about, right? It's the
honesty.
long-term alignment of the goals. If you protect the interests of your customer long-term,
They'll keep coming back.
They keep coming back.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing for us. We could have diluted this product and asked you to use it at every oil change. It would make way more money for us, and we could, if we would be able to match the price for whatever for competitors and put it in a larger bottle and everything, we would be doing the same thing as everybody else. But I think long term, that alignment of the goals, when you have 3-4 oil changes and your car still sounds like smooth as a glass and quiet and pleasure to drive, we get customers sending us their samples of their products because they're happy, saying that, oh, I was able to drive the car with the drain oil to my shop because of your product. We're really happy to hear.
But I don't think you want to recommend.
We don't recommend that. That's a lot of liability for us.
Yeah, but that's an amazing story, though. And, I think this is really exciting that you now have a product for automatic transmissions out available. I guess one last question would be, CVTs, I hear these are a problematic transmission. Do you have hopes that this will help those problems as well?
Yes. CVT have very favorable friction interface for us to be useful there. So especially ones that are based on the band and the cones.
All right. That reminded me of one more question. Electric vehicles. Are you afraid your product is an internal combustion healer? The transmission doesn't need an internal combustion engine. So, are electric vehicles going to be the next best thing for?
Oh, this is such a good question. Such a good question. Short answer: no, we're not gonna get obsolete. As long as there is moving parts, including the wheel,
forever.
Friction is eternal as a wheel. So there would be bearings in the wheel. There would be like even the cars that have limited number of moving parts, they have small gearboxes, right? And those gearboxes filled with oil. And even more so in electric cars, the
high torque
interface, it's a high torque, highest torque at 0 RPM. At 0 RPM, when parts are not lubricated by spreading liquid, it is a very challenging part. So if that interface, if that high torque gets applied, you have immediate welding. Same thing with the tank. Probably we're gonna address it another conversation.
A tank.
Tank. Let's move it to the other side. If you search in the Google Tesla milling noise, you will realize how ubiquitous that problem is. Usually Tesla replacing the drive units, trying to take pain on their customers on their side, but over time they have to solve this problem. It's cost them quite a bit of money. So if you guys have good connections with Tesla, I would love to have warm introduction, because we think we can fix that problem for them in long term, or intervene it when it is becoming to rise. By the way, guys, it would be so super nice if you comment in the video below that you
What?
Look at the camera.
This
yes.
camera.
Guys, if you comment in the video below that do you like that Q&A? Do you want us to do more of it? We was literally trapped by the snow today, so we decided to do it live. But if you want us to do it more often, answer your question, please comment in the video below, and also you can send us questions to support@tribotex.com or pasha.r@tribotex.com, and we will answer them. And next week we are launching Kickstarter campaign, and the Kickstarter campaign is not just for our success. This is campaign for us to bring this technology to the need of a warfighter, to bring this technology to ground support equipment, to constant speed drives, to vacuum pumps, to gearboxes, to transmissions, to
scale up your product so you can make it lower.
Development, because last year we ran out of stock more than 5 times, because our current manufacturing does not able to support demand even in engine field. So we hope to see an exciting future here, and I hope you guys would be able to help us early on, because for a Kickstarter, the very first minutes or hours or days are critically important, because it keeps your ranking up and makes your project visible, and once it is visible, we can make more people interested and educated and aware of existence of our technology, more people in this field that we was be able to before.
So follow our Kickstarter so that you get updates when we go live, which is Tuesday. And so in a couple days, we're going to go live, and this product will be at the probably cheapest it will ever be in your early bird. Oh, yes, this little guy. So this product right here will be available. Here, what?
Nice, there you go.
Got it?
Yep.
All right. Yep. And definitely, if we, just even being a $1 backer, just saying, hey guys, kudos, good luck. That helps the algorithm with Kickstarter to make it go up on the page, like Pasha said. And we really think that this can be a big changing product for the world, and help save you guys money, save our nation money, and make the world more efficient.
Yeah, and I think the big effort in mind, it's one part, but one thing that kept me going for those years was that feeling when I tried first time in my car, when the car becomes so smooth and so pleasant to drive that it kind of returned back this joy of ownership of cars. And among our customers, there are people who really love their vehicles. It's a high performance cars. It's a classic cars. In 2016, we done study for tanks. If you have to ride the tank, you really want to take good care of it.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do another Q&A on that one. I'm really interested to hear how what happens in a tank and what tribology can do for a tank in the military. But yeah, this is the whole reason why I joined TriboTEX, was because of one syringe that you gave me at a business competition that you guys just absolutely destroyed me in. But I was so skeptical because I had done so much.
It was not that violent though.
No, it was. I was so skeptical. Like, I had no belief that this would work. And you finally, actually, it was watching Miss Madison's success after hearing you do that, following their Facebook page and seeing their updates. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I am still blown away. Like, I show it off to people now. My Jeep is the quietest vehicle that I've ever owned now. And it's not. It's a minivan engine. It's a noisy, tappy, clicky, weak sauce engine, and I'm getting better gas mileage, and it's so quiet that I sometimes just turn off my cabin fan because I just like to just hear just the road even. Like, it's wild. So thank you again, Pasha, for all of this, and I wish you the best of luck with this Kickstarter. I guess us now, since I'm part of the TriboTEX team, and
we want you guys to experience exactly the same feeling. Showing a syringe and saying, oh yeah, there is some nanoparticles there, is not as powerful as you yourself looking into that phone that says your noise reduced by 7 decibel. You driving into oil change lot and somebody tell you, hey, why don't you start your car? I will check level of your fluid of your transmission. And you say, no, the car is already running. And they say, no way, I can't hear it. That's kind of a surprise we want you to experience firsthand. And by far, the best option to do it is to back our Kickstarter, because since the very first Kickstarter, we never had the opportunity for you to buy in that technology, join our journey, and see how it grows at such a low price with such an effect. Even more so, our Kickstarter backers had long-term benefits. We often provide them special discounts as long as we can, and we would like you to be part of this journey with us, and specifically Air Force, because the idea to bring your technology into flying machines, it excites me quite a bit. And if we can hope to make it within 3 years, that would be great of success. Thank you very much.